Yo, what's good, everybody? So, we already know Trump smacked a lot of people with tariffs and threats of tariffs. We've had a lot of reactions from China, Canada, and Mexico. So, let's hop in here and see what we're talking about.
You can't say he didn't warn you. Mass deportations, caravans making U-turns, migrants sleeping at Gitmo instead of four-star hotels. DEI destroyed, bureaucracy slashed, FBI purges and foreign aid cuts. More on that later. California's reservoirs are even filling up, and wind farms off the Jersey Shore canceled. Countries are learning a very important word in the English language: respect. Colombia did a 180 after tariff threats and started taking back their bad hombres. And after flipping Biden the bird, Venezuela is taking their migrants back too. All it took was a trip by Rick Grinnell, who flew home with 6 American hostages. What'd we give up? Nothing. Up next, Panama.
Secretary of State Rubio is in Panama right now, and we're talking about the Panama Canal. What they've done is terrible. They violated the agreement. They're not allowed to violate the agreement. China's running the Panama Canal. That was not given to China. That was given to Panama foolishly. But they violated the agreement, and we're going to take it back, or something very powerful is going to happen.
After Rubio's first visit, Panama ripped up the canal contract with China's Belt and Road Initiative. Trump also started a trade war with Mexico.
I will say that's kind of crazy for them to rip up the agreement like on spot and kind of disrespectful to the other side. Sorry, China.
Mexico and Canada. A 25% tariff on all imports. Democrats pretended it was economic Armageddon. Chuck Schumer said, "What about my cerveza?"
What's that going to mean? Higher prices. Higher prices for New Yorkers, higher prices for Americans. It's going to affect almost everything. Let's just take Super Bowl Sunday, okay? It's going to affect beer, okay? Most of it, Corona here, comes from Mexico. It's going to affect your guac, because what is guacamole made of? Avocados, both from Mexico.
And I do feel like that's a good point. It's like we get a lot of stuff from a lot of other places, and Mexico is responsible for over like $300 billion worth of imports into the United States. We import more stuff from Mexico than we import from China these days, which is kind of wild.
Before Chuck could put down the avocados, the Mexican president buckled and agreed to send 10,000 Mexican soldiers to the southern border to stop migrants and fentanyl. In exchange, Trump paused tariffs on Mexico for a month if they behave.
So the call with Mexico went very well in the sense that they're very strong now on the border.
Did you blink this morning?
There was no blinking. No, she's a wonderful woman, but she did agree to 10,000 soldiers on the border. I would say that's a lot. Would you say that's pretty good? 10,000 soldiers on the border?
Sir,
and the 10,000 soldiers are going to keep illegal aliens out, and they're going to keep them out, seriously out, and otherwise they're going to have a big penalty. Mexico's going to be penalized.
Yeah, Trump got Mexico.
I do think it's interesting to allow the Mexican government to supply workers to protect the borderline. Or is like, I don't know. Wouldn't you feel more comfortable with your own troops? Now, I'm not saying we need to supply 10,000 more troops to go protect the border, but to like boast that you're, I don't even want to say competitor, whatever. I think it's interesting that it's 10,000 Mexican soldiers.
Mexicans helped to secure the border and slow down mass migration and drug overdoses. But for a few hours there, it looked like we might have had to pay 10 cents more for guac. China's backdooring cars and dumping cheap steel through Mexico. And the cartels are funneling fentanyl and illegals into the United States.
And that is another thing. The trade with Mexico and the United States does benefit China, because in order to import stuff from across the country, or not across the country, from across the world, import stuff from across the world, there are more taxes and tariffs being charged already before Trump did anything. And so in order to bypass some of this tax, countries will import to Canada and Mexico and then send it to the United States, because their trade agreement is different than the trade agreement that that country has with the U.S. And the U.S. doesn't tax for things that are made in North America, because they're already playing a little bit more on equal footing. So there was no tax agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So countries who had to pay high taxes with the United States would send their stuff to Canada or Mexico and then send it here.
If countries are going to wage economic and drug warfare on us, why have we been waving the white flag? Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth went down to the southern border today and said this.
Border security is national security. Guys and gals of my generation have spent decades in foreign countries guarding other people's borders. It's about time we secure our own border. Mission accomplished means 100% operational control of the border. Right now, that means a surge of manpower to the cartels. All options are on the table.
Trump's DEA chief is vowing to build a multinational army of good to fight evil. So Mexico's not off the hook just yet. And neither's Canada. They were next.
Canada's been very abusive of the United States for many years. They don't allow our banks. Did you know that? Canada does not allow banks to go in. If you think about it, that's pretty amazing. If we have a U.S. bank, they don't allow them to go in. Canada's been very tough on oil, on energy. They don't allow our farm products in, essentially. They don't allow a lot of things in, and we allow everything to come in. It's been a one-way street. We subsidize Canada by the tune of about $200 billion a year. And for what? What do we get out of it? We don't get anything out of it.
American banks in Canada are barely allowed to lend money, and they can't even accept deposits less than 6 figures. Canada dumps cheap lumber into the U.S., and it erects major duties on American dairy farmers. Plus, they're delinquent on NORAD and NATO, so it's time to pay up.
I think that part right there is crazy, is for them to be a national power and be a part of NATO and not have paid. Is I think one thing that's really interesting is just knowing that there are multiple intercontinental parties that have had imbalances for so long. But as soon as the United States looks like we're out of balance, things are done to rectify it. And we have to address the fact that we are trillions of dollars in debt, dog. I feel like nobody really remembers or thinks or talks about that part of the equation at all. I feel like that's something we have to take into account and remember that part of the reason for this is because we put more money out than we take in. And we have to figure out how to make that change.
Canada tried to hold out and just ended up begging for mercy.
Americans have to understand how hurt and frankly how furious Canadians are. Our sovereignty is being challenged. And so, yeah, regular Canadians across the country are coming up with ways to stand for Canada, to fight for Canada, to defend Canada, but mostly to say to our American neighbors, guys, just cut it out. Just stop it. This is a terrible idea.
Well, our first mistake was begging for mercy on CNN, not Fox. Everybody knows Trump doesn't watch that channel. We're even seeing trade war propaganda on Canadian SNL.
What the hell are you doing?
What?
That's Heinz ketchup.
So?
It's American. Buy French's. It's Canadian. We're in a trade war, you traitor.
I'm sorry, I didn't know.
Mrs. Butterworth? You were going to buy American maple syrup?
Oh. Okay, that costs way more.
So does freedom.
Canada needs us more than we need them. Over 75% of Canadian exports come here. They can't win a trade war with us. They know it, Trump knows it, and there's only one way out.
And that's another thing I feel like a lot of people are like forgetting is that we are one of the biggest import countries. So yes, prices for us are going to go up, but at the same time, they don't want to take the risk of not being able to get their products off to begin with. So they're going to have to figure out a compromise. And that's another thing, because it's like, for me personally, seeing all of these executive orders being signed off on, I'm like, bruh, there's so many things that play into them, and they negatively impact and affect so many other places. I'm sure they're going to want to compromise. But hey, what do I know?
Look, what I'd like to see, Canada become our 51st state. We give them protection, military protection. We don't need them to build our cars. I'd rather see Detroit or South Carolina or any one of our, Tennessee, any one of our states build the cars. They could do it very easily. We don't need them for the cars. We don't need them for lumber. We don't need them for anything. We don't need them for energy. We have more energy than they do. We don't need them for energy. So I say, why are we doing this? Why are we willing to lose between $100 billion and $200 billion a year? We don't need them.
But before I even got on the set for The Five, Governor Trudeau crawled to the table. Quote, I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. Canada caved. And in exchange, Trump paused tariffs for 30 days. There was no inflation. There was no recession. The market closed pretty much flat. But we've been told tariffs don't work and that Trump's trade wars are reckless. Well, so far, every country that's been threatened bent the knee, and we haven't conceded a thing. And if tariffs are eventually enacted, American consumers have a choice. We don't have to pay for Corona. We can buy Bud, just not Bud Light. Tariffs encourage Americans to buy American. And it encourages multinationals, if they don't want to get hit with a tariff, to have their products made in America. That boosts American jobs and wages. Europe's next.
That's another thing, too. It's not like they have to pay the tariff. There's a workaround as well. So even in the imposing of it, there was the option to avoid it. And that's what I'm saying is I'm sure everybody wants to compromise. Now, do companies want to bring their company here? No. But something that I heard is the idea of, okay, maybe they don't move all of their production here, but they open up a branch of the company where they export it unfinished to their branch here and then finish it. So they don't have to pay the same tax on the finished product. There's workarounds. That's all I'm trying to say is there are workarounds. There are options.
We have massive deficits with the European Union, massive, like $350 billion, if you can believe it. They don't take our farm product. They don't take our cars. They don't take almost anything, but we take it.
Why don't countries take farmed products from the United States? 3 simple letters. I'll let you figure them out. Starts with the G, ends with the O.
Their cars. We have millions of cars coming in, BMW and Mercedes-Benz and Volkswagen and just so many different cars, and we don't do anything about that. How many Chevrolets or Fords do you see in the middle of Munich? And
that's another thing.
Because they don't take
I've never
cars.
heard anybody want
anything. So the European has abused
a
the United
Chevy
States for years.
over a Mercedes, dog.
And,
European cars are known to be
Europeans
good.
have a 10% tariff on American cars. You know what the U.S. tariffs European cars? 2.5%. America should never accept bad trade terms, especially when we pay to defend Europe.
And that's something I can agree upon. Paying 5 times as much, why? It's not equal. But at the same time, we have to look at the value in the value and quality of the product. We have so many fake things. We have so many cheap things. Whatever. I don't want to sound un-American.
You can already see how the European trade war is going to end. They'll drop their duties on American car imports, pay their NATO dues, and German car plants are going to shift to South Carolina or Tennessee. And Greenland's destiny is also a part of this negotiation. We see you up there. There's a new sheriff in town, the tariff sheriff. You combine economic power with gunboat diplomacy, and you could put together a new world order based on America first.
Every single one of those countries is dying to make a deal. You know why? Because they're ripping us off really badly. And the United States is tired of just being ripped off. And that's why we have $36 trillion in debt. We have it for a reason, because we make bad deals with everybody. And we don't allow that anymore. In the end, you're going to see that either very, very substantial tariffs are going to be paid by them, or they're going to make some kind of a deal.
Hey there.
And that's pretty much what I was kind of saying is since I was in high school, over 10 years now, we've been talking about this deficiency and this debt and how it's only been growing trillions and billions of dollars year over year. Why, dog? But then you want to talk about Cash App is monitoring the American people's pockets. My G, I promise you I'm not taking in $1 million on Cash App. I promise you I'm not avoiding taxes by millions of dollars. I don't think you're going to find the 3.2 trillion you're looking for in my phone. Hey, figure out your bank accounts, dog.
Trump, there's always a deal to be made. He just announced from the Oval that Ukraine will have to sign over rare earth minerals in exchange for our generous support.
We're telling Ukraine they have very valuable rare earth. We want what we put up to go in terms of a guarantee. We want a guarantee. We're handing them money hand over fist. We're giving them equipment. European is not keeping up with us. They should equalize. And look, we have an ocean in between They don't. So we're looking to do a deal with Ukraine where they're going to secure what we're giving them with their rare earth and other things.
Lithium, uranium, titanium. There's just some of the rare earth minerals that Ukraine has that are critical to the future of the American economy and our national security.
And that right there is just asking for collateral in your investment. We've given you cash. We need some type of collateral.
We can't let China dominate this space. A powerful economic message is being sent. And on Saturday, the world heard a powerful military one. Trump ordered airstrikes against ISIS leaders in Somalia. American commanders are being unshackled by the timid rules of engagement placed on them by Biden. Our enemies will be taken out early and quickly, preventing big wars by winning small battles. The rupture you're experiencing, the whiplash you're witnessing, is a commander-in-chief with vision on a mission and a young cavalry in the cabinet to execute action fast.
We have great people coming in. I'd like to say the best ever recruited for government. I think we have the finest people ever recruited for government. You're starting to see that because we've done more in 2 weeks than Biden's done in 5 years, 6 years. If they could be here between him and Obama. You add it up, okay? We've done more in 2 weeks than they've done in 12 years.
Joe Biden liked to say, never bet against the United States. But other countries were, and they were winning by betting against Biden. And now that the big guy's gone and the tariff sheriff's in charge, there's law and order here at home and abroad.
So there you have it. A lot of stuff has been happening, and it's only been roughly over 30 days in this new leadership. And a lot's happening. So we can just imagine what's all going to shake out. I hope everything can be done amicably and peacefully. We'll see, dog.